And we are up and running. It's a beautiful day here in the Midwest, and I am delighted in being able to have a dialogue with Maria Felipe and her new book that is out. And we're going to look very deeply into that journey that she took in the discovery of A Course in Miracles. How are you this afternoon, Maria?
I am, well, as you can see on my face, I'm very happy and honored. One thing I love to do is to collaborate with another soul, another spirit to share. So this is always what really matters to me. You know, these moments to be able to share together in collaboration.
Yes, that's one of the beauties of the Course is it really urges us to get rid of any sense of having a distance between people. And so every opportunity that we have to be able to collaborate and to pass along the vision of non-duality is always an exciting experience, I think, for everybody involved. Well, now, one of the things, I assume that your name is kind of a shortened from the original Spanish, what I think is spelled a little bit differently, Felipe. But I had a friend and a foreign exchange student from Castile when I was in high school, and his name was Juan Felipe. And he told me that his last name, Felipe, was, it meant literally friend of horses, and his family raised Arabian horses there in Spain. So are you a friend of horses? Do you like horses, just out of curiosity?
Yes, I do. I think that horses are such a beautiful, beautiful animal. And I didn't know that actually. So that makes even the connection more powerful. So yes.
Yeah, it's fascinating how if we look into the dream, there are all these threads that take us back across the illusion of time and cause us to ponder the past. And, you know, that gives you the fantasies about the future. But those are, you know, while they're enjoyable, they're simply distractions. But so
Yeah.
you started off on your journey with A Course in Miracles down in Florida, if I
Mhm.
am correct. So what was it about your life that caused you to suddenly say, this isn't working, I need something more?
Well, what called me was I was in a depression. I went through a depression in my early 20s, almost like my late teens, of which I didn't know what my purpose in this world was. I didn't understand why I was here. I just started asking all these questions of what was next. I was already an actress in television at the time. I started doing television commercials when I was about 16 years old. So I was already in the entertainment business, actually already making money in the business. So, but the thing is, I was a little lost, and if I would continue doing that. And I started to just lose myself. I felt like I didn't know what was going to happen in the future, and I had a lot of anxiety. And in 1995, I would run into Marianne Williamson's book at the bookstore, of Return to Love, of which I read. And she kept on saying all over the book, left and right, she kept on mentioning this blue book, A Course in Miracles. And it really stood out for me at that time, although it didn't really call me to buy it or anything or look more into it, just read her book and that was it. But what really brought me to spirituality and even to the course was that moment of depression, of where I even told my parents, I feel so sad. What is this? And they told me, you're depressed. And I was like, what is that? Why don't they teach you this at school? You know, why don't they teach you that you get depressed in this world? I had no idea what this sad feeling was. And I would be 2001, 4 to 2001, in Florida, in Miami, like you mentioned. I was at Unity of the Bay, and you know, spirit works in such beautiful ways. I was at the bookstore, and I heard through the intercom system that they had the Course in Miracles workshop going on, of which I put two and two together in my mind that I had read in Return to Love about A Course in Miracles. So I walk into the workshop very, very excited, and I sat down on the chair, and I was just happy. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to finally know about this mysterious blue book that this Jewish lady in Return to Love keeps on talking about. And he said, the three things he said was this. He said, The Course in Miracles is that you take responsibility for everything. You're responsible for all your perceptions and your experience. You are not a victim of the world that you see, and you forgive people for what they didn't do. And I was, only 22, 23 at the time. So I literally fell off my chair. I mean, literally, I made a thump noise in the class. They're like, what happened to this girl? I was like, oh my God, like this is so radical. And I picked myself up off the chair, and I was like, it just hit me over the head. And I didn't understand what he was saying at the moment, but I knew it would be my path. And I knew that I would study the book for the rest of my life, even though I didn't understand anything. So that's how it all began for me.
Very cool. So
Yeah.
it caused you to literally fall off your seat. And I think that's really the beauty of a course, is it does impact you almost like a baseball bat when you finally get that idea that that you are not a victim of the world that you're experiencing. When your ancestral roots are very colorful also. You go back to Cuba, having Cuban ancestry. I'm wondering if part of that was an unconscious sense of disconnect as a result of, the relationship of Cuba, the United States. You've got family and living in two different worlds. Do you think that that somehow was also a component in this sense of being not comfortable with life?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a reflection and a symbol of that. I've always felt very uncomfortable, in a lot of ways growing up, because I had a lot of mystical experiences when I was little, and I shut them down. I had a moment when I was about maybe 5 years old, that I had the presence of Holy Spirit come and sit next to me and tell me it was Holy Spirit. And I had that kind of stuff happen to me. So I always had this connection with the realm that's not a form. And what I did was I suppressed it, and I actually in school was always very never paid attention. I wasn't always very good student because I was always in the arts, or I was always like the rule breaker. I never followed anything anybody would say, and I was always doing the opposite of everything of this world. So I think that has a lot to do with my roots and my culture, just because also this joy and happiness that I bring comes from the culture, the Cuban culture. If you go to Cuba, Cubans are very happy and they're very joyful people, regardless of their circumstances. I mean, you walk into my aunt's house and she's cooking, and they have the boombox going, and they have Pitbull and the music, Pitbull is this artist, music going, and they have nothing. They have nothing. Literally, they turn off the water at 10 o'clock at night in Cuba. They turn off the water at 10 o'clock. Sometimes they don't have electricity for like the whole day. And these people have a smile from ear to ear. Now, do they have it hard? Of course. Although there's such joy in the culture, and I feel being the Course in Miracles teacher and writing the book, it's I was always called. I've been very called to teach it in a very happy way, in a very joyful way, and I feel me having the culture of the Cuban roots is very helpful, because it makes it a lot lighter and a lot more fun.
Beautiful. And of course, the culture is very rhythmic.
Very rhythmic.
Yeah, they love music and they love dance, and that kind of loops into a part of what's going on with your book. I'll put it up here for a second.
Oh, nice.
There we go. Live Your Happy. And as a result of you're embracing this, you've got your own unique dance that probably has a little bit of that Desi Arnaz thing going on with the Latin Cuban beat. Is that true?
Absolutely. I think that these studies, they don't need to be so serious, so hard, so intellectual. I feel that the dance brings it into your experience. The more you let go, it's just you experience the happiness. I feel that I think that the time has come to bring the teachings of the course from your head, from this whole thinking to your heart, towards the experience. And I think that that's what Jesus is calling us to do in the course, is to bring the teachings into your experience in this realm, with your relationship with yourself and your relationship with others. We're also being called to live it. And Jesus is telling us this over and over without compromise. It's really, really saying it's willingness. I know the Course in Miracles says all you need is a little bit of willingness and miracles happen. In my book, I say big willingness. And the reason I say big willingness is just for fun. Not that little willingness doesn't sound good. It's just big willingness for me in the body, me, Maria form. I needed to really have what I call in Spanish cojones, like very, very big willingness to be able to get out of my own way and experience the happiness I'm experiencing now. But I had to be completely like willing without compromising that. And that takes something.
Yeah, it definitely does. And generally, it is more than just depression. It's generally inspired by crisis and pain and some level of suffering. Did you go through a period that you would actually identify as being a period of suffering before you really felt like you were being able to release the identity of Maria and start experiencing something different that brought you out of the suffering?
Yeah, that's a great question and comment. I could say that I was suffering for a big part of my life, from when I started reading the course till about 2009, 2012 to be exact. I was I think we have all experienced this self-help desperation, right? Which I lived by reading all these self-help books, even going to Course in Miracles, going to workshops, like just looking and searching for happiness, searching for peace, searching for what, wanting to live what Jesus is talking about in the course and not experiencing it at all and not understanding why. But I experienced a deep sense of suffering throughout all my careers in television because I constantly looked for my happiness outside of myself. And if I would get a job as an actor, I would be happy. Another thing, a big grievance of mine is men. If I didn't have a relationship with an amazing guy, I was a hot mess. So everything was external. So I suffered a lot. I would spend many days crying, maybe Monday through Friday. And it was just starting to get so unbearable, and it started to reach its unbearableness, if that's even a word, in 2009 when I got a divorce, of which really just catapulted me to like just death of like, there has to be another way, there has to be another way. There has to be another way of living. There has to be another way of being. And when I started to ask these questions and started to recognize that everything that I was doing, regardless if I was studying the course, wasn't working, that I needed to have change. And that change was living it. And that's why the book is called Live Your Happy. It was really, really living it and not compromising it anymore. So in 2009, I called the lady that actually officiated my wedding, and I told her that I was getting a divorce and that I was a hot mess and very distraught. And she says, why don't you go to Pathways of Light? Pathways of Light is a ministerial school based on A Course in Miracles. And I think that, you would like it and you could become a minister. And I was like, I don't want to become a minister. Hells no. I'm an actress. I don't want to be a minister. And she says, well, just look it up and tell me, see what you think. So I looked it up and I saw that it was like a university of the Course in Miracles and a curriculum. And that got my attention. That got my attention more than being a minister or a teacher or anything. I didn't even want to be a teacher. I didn't want to be a reverend. I wanted to continue my acting career, and that was it. But I said, I'm going to go to ministerial school to heal my mind. Instead of going to a psychologist, instead of going to a psychic or whatever, I'm going to get my healing on through this program. And that's what I did. So I started to go to Pathways of Light in 2009. And that first year was okay. I was still very stuck in the illusion. I was having very heavy alcohol drinking, having a very destructive life because I wasn't ready yet, obviously. And then there was a moment of where I saw that myself so destructive that I kind of recognized that if I would continue living that life, I would die. I would die. I knew I would die. So in the physical, of course, you know, because truth, we never die. But in the physical, I was going to die. And I had a lot of bigger purpose here in this consciousness of awareness we live in. I knew that. So I decided to, just leave the habits, the unhealthy habits, and get more integrated into the studies. And I did. So I got back to the studies because I had actually left them. A curriculum that takes a year to do, it took me 3 years because of my resistance to it. And I kept on getting this nudge of teaching and speaking, and I just started to step into that. And then between 2009 and 2012 is when I started to get just all these kind of opportunities to speak, like at Unity of Burbank, which was where I speak now. I don't know, I just started to get asked by Course in Miracles conference people to ask me to speak at their conferences, but it was a very natural thing. It was never anything that I set out to do. It was never anything that I said, I want to do this for the rest of my life, or I want to be a teacher. Never. It was more of, it was like I was being guided towards this new call, and it came very easy to me, which I think that's in divine grace as well. And also the book deal came, just 3 years after I started my speaking career. And it was because D. Patrick Miller, he was the one, he's the one that contacted us, didn't he? D. Patrick Miller?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he saw a post. This is a funny story. He saw a post that I wrote on Facebook, which I wrote that sounded really good. And I decided to put excerpt from my book on this post on Facebook. And quite honestly, I didn't have a book. I just wrote that because it sounded good. And I had just had a glass of Pinot Noir. So I was kind of in a giddy little state, happy state. And I posted this. And D. Patrick Miller sent me a message on Facebook. And he said, Maria, I get very interested when course teachers are writing a book. I would love to speak to you about your book. And I didn't know what he was talking about. So I look on my Facebook feed and I was like, oh my God, the post that I posted yesterday, I wrote that I had a book and I didn't have a book. So I didn't write back to him. I didn't write back to him because I was embarrassed. So he ended up writing me an email. And then I finally talked to him and I told him, listen, Patrick, the truth is I don't have the book. I don't have a book. It was the Pinot Noir talking. The Pinot Noir was talking, not me. I have no book. So he told me he had seen my my YouTube videos, and he told me that I had a message to give, and that if I knew that I was a happiness teacher, like a joyful teacher. And I told him I didn't know that. He goes, yep. And every single video on YouTube, you're like, happy this and happy that. And he says, let's just write a book proposal and let's get it out there. And we did. We got it out there. He wanted it to be at Hay House. Hay House didn't want anything to do with a book, of which I was really happy about, because remember, I didn't want to write a book in the first place. So I was he says I was the happiest rejected author he's ever met. And it was because I really suffered in school, because I was so just flighty, and I was just so connected to the other realm that I was never really a good student. I never identified myself with being good at grammar. I also had dyslexia, and I don't like reading much, and I don't like writing much. So I never identified with even writing anything. So that's another reason why I didn't want to write the book. But as spirit would have it, it would bring it to me in such a gentle and beautiful way through Patrick, through the gentleness of it gave me comfortability and also confidence to really do this. And we got rejected by Hay House, and then he said, well, let's go ahead and shop it in January for the new year. This was not this year, but the other year. And we got the book deal, and we literally got it in, we basically, out of 5 people we presented it to, 3 gave us, an offer, and we went with New World Library. And New World Library are the same publishers that published The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle and Deepak Chopra's books. So isn't that crazy? It's like out of this world. I mean, you can't make this up.
It's beautiful. It's
from
absolutely perfect.
From a Facebook post, who would have thought?
Well, and that's how spirit works upon all of us. It takes over and opens doors and causes us to approach life from a whole different angle than what we're going on. One of the things that on one of my websites, The Miracle Within, on the landing page, I have about a 15-minute interview with Helen Schuckman, and she was talking about writing A Course in Miracles, and she states that it was not like listening to a voice that was like exterior. It was not a voice in her head that brought the course through. She felt like it was a presence that was a part of her, and rather than taking dictation, she felt like it was literally a downloading of information. How did you write? Did you feel like there was a voice speaking to you, or did you just feel like it was coming up from someplace deep within yourself?
Well, first thing that I want to share about that is that when I decided I would write the book, it would be a different kind of book. Just because I did suffer so much with self-help books, of which I never really got much out of. And I wanted to write, when I decided I would do this book and I gave it over to Spirit, I said, this is going to be fun. I'm not going to stress out about this, because I took my acting career so seriously. And so it was so hard for me that I said, if I'm going to step into this world of being a teacher of God and writing books and stuff, this is going to be fun. Why? Because I've already done it the other way, and it's not fun. So first things first is that if I write this book, it's not going to define me, and I'm not going to make it matter so much. Basically, I'm just going to have fun with it. That was the first thing. So what I did was, to help me, is that I had already outlined the chapters 1 through 9, and each one of them had a title. So what I did is that I felt what you said Helen did. It wasn't like a voice. It was like, it was me. It was like this insightful voice that was me, that would come through me. And it was very easy. Being that I was dyslexic and feeling that I could never write anything, it was very easy. And I wanted to be sure that the book spoke to your heart and would cheerlead you, would excite you to go out in this experience and live it fully, to max capacity, every single principle of the course, to want to go out there and really just fly with it, live it fully, and no longer compromise it. I feel that I did that. I felt like I was a student for over 10 years, going to my group every Monday and being a hot mess. Like, I would feel good on Monday and Tuesday, and then Friday I wasn't feeling good. And the course promises us, I feel, happiness Monday through Sunday, 24 hours a day. Why? Because it's our inheritance. Why? Because it says it. Happiness is our function. It's like God wants his children to be happy, to experience happiness. So I feel that I wanted to write a book that really spoke to not the intellect, but to your heart, so that you can go out there and live it. Forgive, even if you don't want to forgive. Be responsible, even if you don't want to be responsible, to really get out of your own way, so that way you can experience what God's will is for you. And that's where the core of the book comes from. It comes from that space of me suffering so much with the principles of the course and not living them, that I said, if I write this, it's going to come from this space of not even, it's not even going to speak to remotely your intellect. It's going to come from el corazón, which you say in Spanish, tu corazón, and have it be an experience in your life. And I've read it over and over again in the Course in Miracles. Jesus is telling us, even to some point, just, be that love, be that symbol of Christ. That's what we're being called to do. And I think we get caught up sometimes as course students in the lessons. I think we get caught up into trying to, understand it. And I feel that the understanding comes through the experience a lot of the times, most of the times. So I wanted to really offer that. And the whole book comes from the space of my struggles of not living it. And I share stories of, I had an ectopic pregnancy, a miscarriage. I also had a failed, marriage. I also share stories from my students of a course, and how they've been able to also get out of their way and have healing. So I also wanted to write a book that was practical, that really made the message of the Course in Miracles very easy to understand. And I wanted to write a book that would encourage you to practice. I feel that there's so much in the practice, practicing every moment when you get up in the morning, from when you wake up to when you go to sleep, like being in the practice of taking responsibility, you know, being in the practice of discerning what's in your mind, if it's fear or love, being in the practice of forgiveness, and constantly practicing is where I feel that you start to get more and more confidence, and you start to get an amazing relationship with your inner teacher, which is Holy Spirit, which is really a big chunk of my book, is really, really activating the Holy Spirit voice within your mind. And Jesus says in the Course in Miracles, like the purpose of the Course in Miracles is for you to have a relationship with Holy Spirit, because Holy Spirit's going to remember where you've never left, which is the mind of God. So there's so many practices in the book that I used so that I can pump up the volume, as I would like to say, of the voice of Holy Spirit. So I'm really, really excited. I'm so excited of birthing this.
Yes, it is definitely your own special child, and you'll definitely want to nurture it. But what also occurs with things like this is that you begin to recognize people around you that you have a unique kind of love and appreciation for. And in Course in Miracles, it tells us that we are like the Father in that we extend as the Father extended and created us. So a lot of people you run into in the world that you're surrounded by, you'll have this subtle awareness of the fact that, oh, you're one of my children, you're one of my kids. Do you find that you have those kind of little blips every once in a while that show up on your radar screen where somebody feels so familiar that you feel like, yes, you're an extension of the love of God that I experience, and we are connected, and we are all part of this one magnificent thing?
Yeah, it gives me even a lot of emotion just thinking about it, because you're absolutely correct. When you really start to live the principles of the Course, you start to reflect in the world of form back to you, at least what I like to call self-love. So it's reflected back to you in symbols and people, etc. And the biggest symbol I have right now that it's being reflected to me is my husband. You know, the person I live with. I actually got married recently in May, and being of people reading my book and all the catastrophe stories of men, you'll see that's even a miracle that I'm in a relationship. So he reflects a lot of self-love to me. And I just feel such love when I'm around his presence. And it's interesting because it's no longer that special love that I used to have in other relationships of, oh my God, goo goo gaga. It's just this really presence of love that I feel in the room when I'm with him. It's also a relationship that is very revealing. We're in it to heal it. So we practice no private thoughts. So I've attracted this relationship of which my partner is on the same journey with me. And we'll literally just go into the room and just share exactly what is that we feel, what's on our minds, our fears. We reveal all that needs to be revealed so we can heal it, even though it's super uncomfortable. So I'm just so grateful because I see that the progress. I think that when you start to see the progress, even though it is in form and it doesn't mean anything, you get very excited because you're like, oh my God, I'm getting somewhere. You know, like something is happening here. My thoughts are changing because I'm reflecting such a beautiful soul back to me. Actually, somebody I actually live with, you know, in this realm. But it's very mystical relationship I have with him because it's there's a lot of love in the relationship to heal, and it's inclusive. You know, I feel that love with my congregation at Unity of Burbank. It's like I have a romance with everyone and everything. It's like I'm experiencing a romance and love with you right now. So it's not like inclusive. Before in my 20s, it was like, you're the one, I love you only. But this love that I share with Christian, I share with everyone. So it's more expansive. So yeah, and I've been having just a lot more mystical experiences of the voice. You know, I get a lot of just guidance. I'm very in tune, like what needs to take place in my life moment to moment. I'm very trusting, you know, very, very trusting. I live a life of trust. So there's not so much manipulating or planning. It's more of just allowing spirit to show me what needs to be seen. It's like I don't want to control and manipulate any longer. You know, I've been there, done that. So yeah.
Well, that's really beautiful. And now, is he also a student of the course, or is he on his own path?
Well, Christian is also a student of A Course in Miracles, and I actually met him at a Course in Miracles retreat that Craig Villarubio did in here in California, and Christian was doing the live stream, and I was one of the teachers at the event along with David Hoffmeister and other teachers. So we actually met at a course event, and we read the Course in Miracles together. We also meditate together, and we're actually reading The Way of Mastery together, which I've read before, but we're reading that. So yeah, it's beautiful to just have a partner that really also really supports the feminine. You know, he really supports my work. He's a digital Jedi, so he supports like the book, and it's like spirit brought him into my life for those skills that I don't have, you know, of social media and marketing and all these worldly stuff that appears we need to do, which are ridiculously not important, but you know, we got to play the game, right? So he helps me to kind of get the word out there of the book, and I don't have some of the skills he has, so I feel like spirit has brought us together for this expansion. So we have a relationship of service, you know, a relationship that we've come together to be of service, and to be truly helpful. And it's very uncomfortable. It's funny because the Course talks about the holy relationship a lot. And I feel like a lot of people want to have a holy relationship, and they're like, oh my God, I really, really want to have a holy relationship. And this is the first time I say this, because it's the first time I actually talk about my relationship with Christian to anyone, by the way, in an interview. But it's funny because him and I were like in deep conversation, and we're exposing our private thoughts. And I just said for a second, I said, if people knew what it is to be a holy relationship, they wouldn't want one. Trust me, because it is some hard shit. Let me tell you. So I feel like people sometimes think the holy relationship is like, and it is a beautiful experience because you start a lot of undoing, and there's a lot of healing that happens in it, of which you feel a lot happier when the whole thunder has gone through. But it's a relationship that you're completely exposed and completely just open, and you have to let go a lot of self-concepts. I mean, all of your self-concepts. So I think that sometimes people, when they say, oh, I want to have a holy relationship, and they loosely say this, you know, you have to recognize what you're getting into, and it's something that really takes something to be, I feel, in a relationship that you want it, a holy relationship, because it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. You know, it takes a lot of work. I don't know if people recognize that. I don't know if people know this, but it's true.
Oh, I can definitely relate. And I think one of the things that occurs is as we experience more and more transparency, the mind comes closer to that state of union with the partner. And then all of a sudden, the ego recognizes all of its vulnerable regions and goes into panic mode. So it definitely can upset the apple cart as far as pursuing the relationship. Now, are the two of you working just on spontaneous living experience, or are you trying to project a future? Are you thinking about doing anything in the direction of family, or are you just enjoying life in the moment?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Well, what we do is that I follow guidance a lot, and I live a life of trust. So there's not a whole lot of planning, but there's inspired planning. So if I get inspired, let's say, for instance, right now we live in this beautiful apartment in Studio City, but you know, him and I both saw vacancy signs in front of our building, and we know there's 3 bedrooms here. We have a 2-bedroom. So he saw vacancy sign this morning. I saw vacancy sign this morning, and we talked about it. We're like, maybe we should call and ask about this 3-bedroom, like things like that we kind of are just see signs and symbols that we receive guidance, and that's how we kind of follow the path. We'll also have some sort of structure in the morning because we're doing this full time. So basically, we're using my brand, Live Your Happy, and what I'm teaching the course, and he's kind of in the back, kind of doing all the stuff that he does to support the brand. So we like we get spontaneous kind of things. Like I'll tell you, we just started this 9-week program for the book that we started promoting during book tour. And basically the 9-week program was something I wanted to do because I wanted to go with the participants every week through the book, read it together, and then we'll do the exercises together. I feel it was just very helpful. And Christian and I were actually going to make this program, we were going to make it, you know, give it a price, and we were going to charge for it. And Christian couldn't get the button working. Like the button wouldn't work all day. This is the kind of stuff that happens. Like we're totally guided. And he says, you know what, this button is not working. Let's just give this program for free. And I was like, you know what, let's do that. And that's how we work. So what we did is we launched the program August 1st, and we launched it for free on donation basis. And we've on week 4, we have 118 participants, and we have people donating left and right. So it's like just living like this, you know, just trusting. And for Christian, it's been a little bit harder because he, you know, he's from Germany, he's German. So, and he's also has a lot of grievances with money and money and things like this. So it's very exciting because he with me, he lives in trust. So there's like this trust that we're going to be provided for. And it's not that we don't work or you know, not want to create money, because we need it for, you know, supposedly in this realm to clothe ourselves and to have a roof over our heads. But the money has been coming. It's been coming because I'm not worried about it. It's more of just we're provided for. And it's not like you don't stop doing anything. You know, I think Kenneth Watkins says this, and Gary Renard, it's like, it's not like you go and quit your job, because you do appear to be in a world of form. But it's like you're in the world, but you're not of it. So you're smiling a lot more, you're a little bit more giddy, and you start to get inspired thoughts of where it could create and generate income for you to be taken care of. And I think that since I have this beautiful purpose, and I'm living out this purpose, no matter what, even though sometimes I don't want to, I'm provided for. I'm provided for, and I'm not scared about it. We feel very, very called to also have a family. So that's something that's happening very quickly and very soon. I'm actually already communicating with her. She's not even here yet, but she's already speaking to me. So that's the kind of stuff that happens to me. So, yep.
That's beautiful. So you are in anticipation of a daughter, and who knows, after that, perhaps a son, and getting them immersed in the course basically from the moment they come out of the womb and enter into this world of form, because they are undoubtedly destined to further your work and Chris's work. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I'll probably bring him in here as we're getting towards the end, so you can meet him. He's in the other room, so if you want to meet him, we could bring him in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have one more question here, or just observation. You definitely are very animated, very lively, and that's, as you stated, a part of your culture, a part of your heritage. And your book is about to be translated into Spanish. And how do you see yourself developing that thread, going to Mexico, going to Brazil? Well, Brazil is Portuguese, but going to the Argentine, going to Chile, and getting out there and communicating with the Hispanic community, the Latino people all around the world. Are you really amping up for that?
Yeah, it is. I'm just blown away, because when I got my book contract, I put it in there that I wanted the book to be in Spanish. That's something that came through me that had to be done. So when Patrick did my negotiation, I told him I will take the offer, but they need to also publish it in Spanish. And it's actually an honor, because it's the first time New World Library is actually doing this. It's the first time that they're publishing a Spanish book in-house based on the Course in Miracles. They haven't done any other book in Spanish in-house. They've done it, but they've sold it, and then somebody else translates it. But they're actually doing it in-house, which is a beautiful thing, because they're doing something new. I think there's something to be said about doing something new, stepping out of your comfort zone, because it gives new energy and new opportunities, even within New World Library, as well as the Latino community. So the book will be out in, I think it's December 14th or 15th. And I have even no idea what that looks like, just because I live such moment to moment. Of course, I will be heavily promoting it. And we'll be traveling to Cuba sometime next year. and taking it there. But you know, life is such a, I'm so filled with wonder. I'm so filled with wonder of where I'm going to go and what's going to be revealed. But it's going to be fun. I know that for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure that there will be multiple opportunities to come and share it in the Chicago region, because we have a huge, huge Latina
Oh, really?
population. Oh, yeah. We've got the best Cuban and Mexican and South American restaurants, I think, probably in the Midwest, if not in the entire United States. So we've got a very, very active and vibrant and emotionally, you know, given to dance, given to celebration of life. And that's a beautiful part of the Chicago region, is that we have all these different ethnic groups that are here not because they're running away from something, but they're here to create something new and something better. So we have a very inspired environment here.
Yeah, you know, the going back to the book in Spanish, it's what the book is very conversational in English, so it's like you're speaking to me and we're speaking on next to each other in a couch. And the Spanish language is very passionate. It's very loving. So the book in Spanish, I feel, reads so well because it goes so much with my personality. So it's very funny, and it's also a lot more. It has a little bit more flavor because the Spanish language has so much more flavor. So that's why I like it so much, because I read it and I just crack up. It's even so much more funny in Spanish, the book. But the whole thing about Chicago, I love that you said that, because that's just another symbol and another sign of the travels that we will do, just like we did with the English book, but in Spanish across country. And there's just something to be said about meeting people out. Everything on nowadays is online, but there was just something really magical about going on book tour for the English book, of where I went to 15 cities between June and July, and just hugging people and meeting people in person, and doing the happy dance, you know, the dance that goes with the book with people, and just seeing their transformation or feeling their healing or healing together is just so wonderful. So I'm psyched to be able to experience that with the Latino community and my roots, you know, and even to bring the book to Cuba is going to be huge, just because of the history that the country has, and you know, how they live. To be able to bring this book is a beautiful thing. It's already been talked about to do it in this beautiful park. It's called El Parque Lanín, which is a historical park, of where we would, you know, give the book and give lunch and have a talk about the book and give the book to the Cuban people. So that's already like in the works. So it's kind of crazy to even think that I would be talking about Course in Miracles principles and concepts in a communist country. You know, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Well, there are definitely doors opening in that direction. My friend Yuval Ron, who I mentioned earlier before we started recording this, took his ensemble of sacred music musicians to Cuba last spring. I think it was in March or April. And they performed the ancient sacred music of the Middle East, and then integrated the music of Spain, the Castilian music, the Gypsy music, and dance and performance. So, you know, Cuba is it is really awakening rapidly, and I think that part of the reason for that is that the United States suppression of Cuba for so long has created a very receptive environment there. It's a people who are ready to celebrate the deeper meaning of life, and they realize
so
that whatever the United States may have done politically, ultimately, it really actually turned out for their best interest in many ways, spiritually at least.
Absolutely. I actually spoke when I was there in December in a makeshift church in a very like old, you know, very poor neighborhood. The streets are just filled with rocks. There's no streets, pavements or anything. There's horses and carriage and everything. And this makeshift church, the music was amazing. I mean, they had like this amazing singer and this guy on the drums, and there's so much love, very loud, very like, it was beautiful. And it's interesting because this church is very evangelical, is very Christian, but they really loved the message. And the pastor wanted to give me the wanted me to talk about the Course. He likes the Course, regardless if, you know, he's very Christian, but he likes the Course in Miracles. So he gave me an hour and I spoke to the Cuban people about the Course in Miracles principles. And I couldn't hardly believe it. I was like, can't believe I'm talking about Course and the ego and the Holy Spirit and love and fear and how your mind works. And you see the Cuban people with a smile on their face, like so excited, so happy to receive this message. And they get it. And they get it. It's really cool.
That is absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Well, now, is there anything else that you wanted to just kind of bring up as an overview of where things are headed right now and how people can get in touch with you and that sort of thing?
Sure. Well, the best thing would be to go to my website, which is mariafelipe.org. That's where the information to get the book is. You can get the book on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, and it's actually all over the place. And I like to support the local bookstores. So it's nice, like when you go to your bookstore and you look for it, or you can order it there to help your local bookstore. But I think that the most important thing that I want to leave everyone with is just a message from my heart of how much I struggled with the Course in Miracles, and that the time has come to put it into practice and to live it, even though in the face of it being hard, and just recognizing that nothing outside of you defines you. You know, I feel that the ego is very external and in form, and you know, I could say just right now that even this book doesn't define me. You know, I struggled a lot with that. Being a teacher doesn't define me. God does. God defines me. So I think that the more that we get that nothing outside of us defines us, and that we can be happy regardless of what's going on in form, we're free. We're free.
Absolutely. We are as God created us and nothing less. And that is the beauty of what God creates, is it cannot be violated, it cannot be damaged or attacked, because it is all that is real, all of existence. So is Chris still hovering there in the other room? Can we
Yes. Yeah, let me grab him.
him.
I will. I'll get him. Let me off the thing so you can hear us both.
Okay. Hopefully we won't get too much of a feedback.
Yeah. He will be.
Hey there.
Hi, Chris. So
that's Christian.
Christian. And are you having fun with this magic carpet ride that you and Maria are on?
Yeah, it's fascinating to support the divine feminine in its rise.
And your bigger vision of where you're headed here, are you thinking that the two of you are going to become a movement? Are you planning on expanding in all directions exponentially?
Well, I think it will be shown, you know, ultimately where we're guided to go, but not too much planning involved. But we definitely it sounds exciting for us to teach and to share a message, because a conversation is more powerful than just getting, you know, like the usual teacher, you know, I'm the authority, I tell you what's better, the guru type thing is losing its, you know, credibility.
So we want to do more. We're probably going to start doing more together, and we want to just be an inspiration for people also, you know, in like relationship, you know, to how to be in a relationship. You know, it doesn't even have to be just in romance. It could be, you know, all kinds of relationship. Just how we relate to each other is very important, you know.
Yes. Well, I think the two of you have got a very brilliant light that you are bringing into this realm of consciousness. You know, the Course talks about the great rays, and how as we begin to awaken, we can see the great rays emanating from everybody that we interact with. And today I feel like I'm seeing that in a very visceral way. The great rays are emanating from Studio City in California.
Thank you so much. We had such a great conversation, and Christian and I haven't been together on camera in an interview yet, but I felt really called to just, so much is happening here at the house and so much healing. I was sharing with him how if people knew what they were getting into with the holy relationship, they'll be very surprised.
Yeah. Well, as the Course said, you know, healing healing is non-optional, you know, but purification is first. And
Yes.
that's what we all go through, you know. We have to look at our stuff and see what holds us back. And I read a quote yesterday that said that there's no such thing as loss, you know. It's just in handing over and stepping into a new and different timeline of our evolution of consciousness. And if my goal is to, you know, get to know love or get to know God, to get to know union, then I have to let go of my self-concepts, you know, and that often is not easy. But you know,
it's not easy. It's caca. It's caca.
We just make it fun, you know. We make a matcha latte or we make our favorite drink, get it on with the healing, and it's all good because that's what we're really here for, you know. We're not here to turn the wheels and amass unlimited material amounts of something that is invaluable at the end anyways. But we're here to support people in rising and recognizing themselves.
Yes, that's beautiful. I can see the two of you shaking up Germany someday down the road at some of the beer gardens and doing the happy dance with a bunch of celebrated German Berliners or something.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great idea.
It's true. The Germans need to have some Cuban. They need some Cuban passion over there.
They need a little bit of fire. They're very stiff people sometimes.
Well, it has been an absolute delight, Maria and Christian, and I'm looking forward to getting this video out in the next 24 hours and sharing it all over the place. So I do appreciate your spending an hour with me, and I'm looking forward to hearing about these next pinnacles that you together are achieving.
Pinnacles. It's funny he says pinnacles. Because we always get pinnacles on the tarot cards.
Yeah, I do tarot.
He has tarot cards, and we always get all these pinnacles. So it's
very good. A very earthy, grounding kind of energy. I started reading tarot cards in 1969, so that's before both of you were born, I imagine.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's like I said at the beginning of the interview. It's this is what matters to me, is the joining and collaboration, you know, of this opportunity to be able to share a message together, and Christian. So thank you. It's an honor.
Thank you, and sending you both much love and